Joining us right now, former Attorney General of Nevada, Adam Laxalt, who has been there on the ground watching all of this and so helpfully giving everybody regular updates. Because Adam, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for what you're doing and for staying in this fight and for pushing for accountability. This is insane, and you have been warning about this, and I've been talking about you and your warnings coming out of Nevada for, I mean, it's been a couple weeks now, and you've been trying to alert people, warning them that this is going to happen. It's going to come down to something like this. And of course, you were 100% right. What's the latest?
Well, look, the Democrats could have avoided this if they gave us a better system. For your listeners that aren't familiar with what happened here, inside 90 days, they changed our system entirely. They gave us mail-in ballots that are sent out to people without request. We have very unclean rolls. We produce photos of ballots in garbage cans in apartment buildings. One voter got as many as 18 ballots to their home that was not theirs. Of course, everybody here is pouring in, reporting about all these ballots that were not their name. And so we have unclean ballots. And then we have this system in Clark County that we said was not foolproof. And we said that the voters are going to be very, very concerned about this if it came down to Nevada and if Nevada matters. And here we are. Here we are where the 6 electoral votes are incredibly important. And all we know is that they created a system that they could have avoided and given greater confidence to Nevada voters. No matter what happens here,
right?
There are hundreds of thousands of Nevada voters that believe this system was simply not secure enough. And I throw that back to the Democrats only because they're attacking us and saying, why would you attack the legitimacy of the election? And the response is, you shouldn't have forced this giant systemic change into our state with so much at stake. It was ripe for this kind of setup. We could have done in person with absentee. If you were worried about COVID, you could have requested a ballot and it would have been verified, et cetera. And we just simply wouldn't be here.
Right, exactly. Well, no one, we would not be here. And you mentioned the system as well. We're speaking with Adam Laxalt out of Nevada, giving us the lay of the land here because everything's coming down to Nevada and its 6 electoral votes. And the way that I understand it, because we've watched Democrats in litigation in so many states across the country where they've been changing these rules as to mail-in ballots and postmarking and all of this stuff. And the way that I understand it, your system, well, the system now that you have and that you're suffering under right now, really you're limited in even the ability or option to even challenge and audit the mail-in ballots, as I understand, correct?
Yeah, well, let me first say that, yes, the Democrats sued all over America to try to change the rules through the courts. And so your listeners are familiar with that. They didn't have to do that here because they went into a special session. They have both houses and a governor, and they created the perfect dream for the left. They created extended early vote, same-day registration, universal mail-in balloting, and they have to accept ballots for 3 days after the election. They have it all here. And so we are challenging our lawsuit last night. One of the things we're taking on is the machine they're using in Clark County, and it's the only county it's happening, to verify signatures. And state law that they just put in place said signatures need to be verified by the clerk or employee. And our contention is, where did this machine come from? Is it reliable? Does anyone know anything about this machine? And as of right now, 30% or more of all of these ballots that were counted by mail were accepted by this machine. And what will shock your viewers is that there was no human contact whatsoever. Once the machine says it's a match, it just counts. And the registrar admitted in court that he unilaterally moved the verification standard down to 40% from the factory setting. So think about that. We have 140,000 and it'll be 200,000 votes will count in this election. There was a lowered signature standard with no human backup.
I'm looking at the totals for this. I'm looking at the just what's been coming in from the state in terms of ballots. That's enough to change the outcome as to who wins Nevada.
Massively, massively. Look, the bottom line is this. One, we have produced evidence of illegal voting. There were over 3,000 voters that moved out of Clark County. They were officially registered with the USPS. They left, and yet they voted. Those have been referred to the DOJ. We are in the midst of producing evidence of dead people that have voted as well. But my larger claim is that in this pool of, it's really 600,000 mail-in ballots, because the hand verification system really isn't that much more secure. But specifically this 200,000, your viewers just need to think about it this way. We have a universe of 600,000 mail ballots, and they're only canceling out about 1%. 6% is all, or 6,000 votes is all that hasn't matched, because the system just pushes them all through, right?
Yeah.
And so any reasonable person could say, we have unclean rolls, we've never done this before. Does anybody think that it's only 1% error rate with signatures? Because some states, when they tried this, it was 30%, 20%. States that do this well, it's 5%, 6%. So pick your number. Let's just say 10%. 10% of 600,000 is 60,000 ballots. And I firmly believe when we finally get to see signatures, if that day comes, we're going to be able to show plenty of bad signature matches. And what the court's going to do with that, if we're going to throw that out, is the big question, because even though we sued and suggested they keep the evidence together, they didn't. And so if we produce 60,000 bad signatures, there's no way to go get their votes. And so I just throw that out to your viewers. The media is like, hey, if this is such a slam dunk, you should just get immediate relief. Well, a lot of these mousetraps have been created so well that it's very, very hard to get relief.
Very hard indeed. And that's one of the arguments that I've seen crop up this morning. Well, if Trump needs to put up or shut up, just go ahead and present the evidence to court. Well, that's what the campaign has been doing. That's what so many people across in states across the country have been doing. You yourself in Nevada, as you were just describing. But it is also very difficult for the reasons that you just gave. How does this end? Because when there are a lot of people who say that the election is being stolen. And I've been listening to all of the information, and I don't doubt that there's fraud. When I hear what's going on in Nevada and what you just explained, that convinces me. It really does.
There's no question there are improper voters that have voted in the system. We can all argue, is it 4,000? Is it 60,000? In fact, the registrar was asked yesterday if he can guarantee that there is no improper voters, and he said he couldn't, because of course he can't, right? And so it's incredibly frustrating what we're dealing with. I wanted to add that Mitt Romney keeps saying that, hey, if there's irregularities, that it'll be investigated and it'll all be cleared up. Investigated by who? In my state, there isn't like an election board that's going to come in and actually kick open the whole system and evaluate it. The Department of Justice isn't allowed to just go kick in doors absent, proof and something that gets them in the door. And so this notion that, hey, we could just all rely that the system is going to correct itself is false. Yeah. There's nothing in this system that will let us go back and look at. We have a Democrat governor and a Democrat AG, and that's the registrar. That's a Democrat county, and he's selected by Democrat commissioners. Do you think they're going to audit this system? Yeah. Do you think they're going to go back and investigate this system after the fact? Of course not.
And wasn't this also the system that Democrats have been saying since 2016 was compromised already? And so now, without anything actually being changed, it's all magically fixed?
Yeah, look, Bill Barr had that great exchange with Wolf Blitzer, and Wolf Blitzer said, produce the evidence. And first he said that James Baker and Jimmy Carter came up with a commission that said mail ballots are unreliable. And Wolf Blitzer says, well, produce the evidence. And he says, it's common sense. And yeah, it's common sense that it's easier to cheat from a house with a ballot that is loose than it is in person. By the way, you could cheat in person too. Yeah. We still have a problem with that. But but you can go into a nursing facility and catch an unsuspecting senior lady or senior man and say, by the way, I notice you haven't voted yet. And you now can help that person in this state. There's ballot harvesting, and I put help in quotes, of course,
Mm-hmm.
because you know that if that is a Democrat machine, which is allowed here, that is trying to harvest that vote, this poor person can say, who do you think I should vote for? And that person can say, well, Joe Biden, of course. And off you go. And so we have it all here. We have ballot harvesting. We have same day. We have no voter
It's like
ID.
the fire festival of
It's
elections. It's happening in
it's
Nevada.
really really bleak. But here's the thing. I take this lesson from our election. The media beat up the president for 4 years. They accused him of being both a white nationalist and a Russian traitor.
Mm-hmm.
And we all agree, if either one of those things were true, we would not be supporting this guy. But they just did it and did it. And half of America absolutely ignored that because they saw through what was really going on. And I firmly believe with mail-in voting in my state, they have way overstepped, probably across the country, but specifically my state. The majority of people are going to come through this election and not believe in this system. And that is their fault. The media can just beat us up every single day and say that, we're lying about this. The people, we're going to trust the people. They know what's going on. They have a lot of common sense.
Last question for you. We're talking with Adam Laxalt out in Nevada, he's been on the ground monitoring all of this and giving us just updates on his social media feeds. Adam, how is this reconciled? It seems like such a large problem. I don't even know where to begin. What relief do voters get?
Look, this is the problem with our election system, and a very small amount of people have been trying to look at it for the last 2 years. We don't have enough resources. We don't have enough funding to really go after this. Democrats have this 600 lawyer block that is fully funded, and they sue across the country every day to change the election system to favor them. And we need somehow to create a system where we're doing the opposite. We're fighting to clean up rolls, like here in Nevada. We're finding ways to spotlight the system. But I'm concerned, and I mean I leave I guess a down note, which is because we're a federal system, because it's so detached. There isn't a one-shot way to fix our election system. Certainly electing people that believe in election integrity to the governor's office, the secretary of state, and legislature. If you have the state of Florida, like my friend Ron DeSantis, they just, boom, they set it up. It's all clear. You have voter ID, and that system is going to be safe and work well. So in the end of the day, a lot of this is going to come down to policy. And I don't know if eventually there'll be federal relief or where this all ends up.
Gosh, this is just an absolute nightmare, and
It is.
I don't know when. I keep thinking maybe we'll have something kind of called this evening, but when you hear about so many irregularities and just outright fraud, I just don't know how that can be legitimately done. Adam Laxalt, former AG of Nevada, thank you so much for all you're doing and for your fight in this. We appreciate you. Thank you.